Hey guys, big ol' welcome back to the channel. I know I said in my last video that we weren't going to have a video on Wednesday this week, but you get a surprise video this week. So basically I started a new set of playlists. One of them is going to be called Trucking 101, so I'm going to add all of my basic trucking information into that playlist. Stuff that's going to help you out. Basically my goal of that is to pretty much take anything that's going to help new drivers or existing drivers who are still trying to learn or touch up on old knowledge. But I want to lay it out in the most simple terms where you can copy and paste it and apply it to what you do every day for work or what you do for school if you're in CDL school. So the point of today's video is we're going to be doing our pre-trip inspection. So without any further ado, we're going to get right into it. We are going to break it down into sections. I really recommend following it by these sections, keeping it consistent, and following basically the exact same routine every time you do it, because if you start mixing things around, you're gonna get a little bit confused. So like I said, let's get right into it. Also, just as a disclaimer, this video is probably going to be a pretty long one, so if you're not here to really learn about how to do a pre-trip, I'm just letting you know now. But if you're here because you think I'm funny looking or because you do want to learn about trucks, then I'm glad to have you here. All right, so before we get started, there's going to be one key phrase that you're going to want to remember. That's going to be not broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Don't forget that. So basically every component that you list, you're gonna get a point from saying that. So make sure you hammer that into your brain. Do anything you can to remember it. If it helps, get it tattooed on your arm. Do something, but that is gonna be the most vital. So let's get into it. So basically this pre-trip inspection is broken up into three parts. First, you're gonna have the outside portion of the pre-trip, which is gonna be taking every single piece of this truck around the outside and talking about that. The second part is going to be the in-cab inspection, which will be talking about the lights, the gauges, some of the safety equipment you have with you. And then the third part of the pre-trip inspection will be the air brake test, one of the most important ones. So let's get right into it. All right, guys, so we're going to start this off in the most obvious way. We're going to start at the front of the truck. So make this easy. We're going to go from the top straight down. So we're going to start with our air dam up top here, air horns, and our marker lights. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. The marker lights are amber in color. You want to make sure you mention that. And we're going to go down to the windshield. Windshield's not cracked or broken. The windshield seal is present. The inspection sticker is present and up to date. The windshield wipers are present, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, they're tight and secure. We're going to come down further to the hood here. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Your fender mirrors here, or you can call them spot mirrors, they're properly mounted, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. We're gonna come down to our grill. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. You wanna make sure you specify that there's no obstruction. Now we're gonna move to our headlights. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. You wanna specify which ones are the high beams and which ones are the low beams. Make sure you point that out. You're gonna also point out the turn signals here and your emergency lights, the emergency flashers, and you just want to say that they are all functioning correctly. Now you will be testing those later as well, so just keep that in mind. Next, we're going to come down further down here to the bumper. We're going to make sure that's not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. The fog lights are present, they're not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. And also on the bumper, I have mine removed for the purpose of this YouTube video, but you're going to have a license plate here. You're going to say that it's current and up to date. Then the last thing that you don't really see, you don't really think of, is underneath the truck here. So basically the truck is not leaning from side to side. You don't see any leaning or any hanging hoses or wires, and there's no leaks. You're going to specify that. So that's the first section, the front of the truck. All right, guys, the next section is going to be the passenger side of the engine. So this is going to be a section of itself. So sorry if I'm talking pretty quickly. Just go back and replay it if you need to hear it again. But this is probably going to be a pretty long video because we're talking so much. So next section is going to be the engine, and then we're also going to move to the chassis and then the wheel. Those are going to be three little mini sections on this side of the truck. So first off, we're going to start here with the radiator. It's not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. You also want to specify that it's not leaking because it has fluid in it. Next, we're going to be looking at our hoses here and these lines. These are the AC lines, and there's going to be some wires here and there. You want to specify that the hoses aren't leaking and the wires aren't frayed. They're not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. I'm sure by now you're realizing how much I'm saying not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Like I said, you're gonna get points every time you say that for each component. All right, so moving on, we have the AC compressor on this side right here, and down there is your alternator. Now, before I go any further, I'm gonna specify that this engine is a Detroit DD15 engine. So this might vary from engine to engine depending on what kind of truck you have, but typically these accessory components are going to be pretty similar on most engines. So you're just going to have to familiarize yourself with the engine that you're going to be taking the test on, or the engine that you have. But continuing on, we have the AC compressor and the alternator here, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. You're going to specify that they are belt driven, and you're going to take a look at the belt and specify that it's not correct. All right, next we're going to look. This truck does not have the engine oil or dipstick tube on this side. They are on the other side, so we'll get to that in a moment. So basically we have this mini section for the engine, all that stuff. Now we're going to come down to this mini section. It's the frame. So we're going to take a look at the frame, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, and it's tight and secure. I mean, it's the frame. Next on the frame, we're going to look at the shock tube, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts. It's tight and secure. It's not leaking any fluid, because that has fluid. So if it has fluid, you got to specify that it's not leaking. Continuing on with the chassis, we have the leaf springs and the leaf spring bolts. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. The leaf springs are not shifted. Make sure you specify that, because they can shift, and that'll be a major safety hazard. So on this side so far, we got that engine section. We got the chassis. Now we're going to move on to the brakes. Brake hose, ABS line, brake chamber, and then you also have your push rod here and your slack adjuster. Moving in further, you have your brake shoes and your brake drum in there. So basically, you're going to specify that these are not missing. They're not cracked or broken. They're not missing any parts. They're all tight and secure. You're also going to specify that the brake shoes are no less than 1/4 inch of thickness in there. So we got the engine, chassis, now we got the brakes. Last thing on this side is going to be the tire and the wheel. So let's start with the tire here. So for the front tires, you're going to have no less than 4 32 inches of tread on these tires. You're also going to make sure that there's no recap on these tires. They cannot be redone tires. They have to be at least 105 psi. And then for the last thing on the tires, you're going to want to remember ABC: abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. So no abrasions to the sidewall. There's no bubbles in the sidewall. There's no major cuts anywhere on the tire, because any of that obviously will be a safety hazard. Moving on down to the wheel, it's not cracked or broken. All your lug nuts are present and secure. You don't have any leaks coming from your hub seal behind here. And you also want to check your valve stem seal is present. Nothing's cracked or broken, missing parts, and it's all tight and secure. So with the passenger side, we went over the engine, the suspension, the brakes, and the wheel. And now keep in mind, because on the driver's side, we're going to also do the engine, chassis, brakes, tire, and wheel. I'll see you over there. All right, guys, good to see you again. We're here on the driver's side of the engine. Sorry about the noise. We're going to get started. We're going to start where we started on the other side. We're going to look at our radiator. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. It's not leaking any fluid. We're going to look at our hoses, any wires that we see. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. No leaks. Again, these have fluid and have wires. So something that I failed to mention on the other side was any reservoirs that you want to see, that you're going to see, you're going to mention those as well. So on this side, we have our coolant, we have our power steering. On the other side, I have my windshield washer fluid. It might vary between truck to truck and engine to engine. So you can mention not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, they're tight and secure, they're not leaking because they have fluid. Mention that their caps are present. You're also going to take a look here at your oil filler cap and your oil dipstick. Mention that those are present, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, they are also tight and secure and not leaking. Like I said, the oil filler and the dipstick could be on the other side of the engine depending on the truck that you have. So moving on, we're going to talk about the engine components. We have our air compressor here, we have our water pump there, and we also have our steering pump, our power steering pump. We're going to mention that these are all gear driven. So the other side components, they're belt driven, these ones are gear driven. So we're going to say they're not cracked or broken, not missing any parts. They are tight and secure. Now, before we move on to the chassis, the brakes, and the wheel and tire on this side, we're going to talk about the steering components. You have your steering shaft. It doesn't move more than 10 degrees in either direction. Your steering knuckle. You have your steering gear box, your pitman arm, your idler arm, your drag link, the steering knuckle back there, your tie rod, and then your castle nut and cotter pins on all these components. So all of it, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Also, you want to say that the steering gearbox is not leaking fluid because that has fluid in it. So now, we got the engine, we got the steering components. We're going to move on to the chassis again on this side. We have the frame, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. We have our shock tube on this side, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. There's fluid in it, so you're going to say it's not leaking. You're going to look at our leaf springs and the leaf spring bolts. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. And again, the leaf springs are not shifted because they can shift, and that's a major safety hazard. So we got engine, chassis. Now we're going to move on to the brake components. Air hose, ABS line, brake chamber, push rod, and slack adjuster. And then we're going to move in here to your brake shoes and your brake drums. So nothing is cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Your air hose is not leaking because that has air that runs through it for your brakes. So you want to mention that that's not leaking. I might have forgot to mention that on the other side. But yeah, every time you mention an air hose, you want to make sure you mention that they are not leaking. Two things we need to add in here, real guys, about the brakes. Number one, with the slack adjuster and the brakes released, you shouldn't have more than an inch of play between that. So make sure you specify that. The other thing is with the brake shoes, make sure that you specify that there's at least 1/4 inch of thickness, if not more. So we got the engine, chassis, brake components, back to the wheel and tire. So with the wheel and tire, it has at least 4/32 inches of tread on the drive tire, the steer tires. Your steer tires are in the front, the drive tires are in the back. 4/32 inches of tread. You're also going to mention that they're at 105 psi. They have no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts, A, B, C, and they are not recapped. Now moving on to the wheel, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. All 10 lug nuts are here. The valve stem cover is present, and the hub seal is not leaking. All right, guys, so now we're going to be moving to the side of the truck. We're actually going to be going from the front to the back. So don't mind these numbers. Those are going to be fixed soon. Anyways, we're going to start with the quarter fender here, and the marker light, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. You're going to specify that the marker light has 3 functions. Marker, obviously, turn signal, and your emergency light. And then we're going to come over here to our door and this side mirror. Side mirrors mounted correctly, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Same with the door, same with the handle. We have our reflector here, and the door seal is present, and we're also going to state that the windows are working as well as the locks. Don't mind the dirtiness. Make sure that's unlocked. So we got the quarter fender, the marker light, the door. Now we're going to move here to the fuel tanks. At least fuel tank on this side. So we're going to notate that it's not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, it's tight and secure, as well as the fuel tank straps in there. The seal is present, make sure you specify that. Then we're also going to physically open your cap and look at it, state that it has its chain and that little seal inside the fuel cap. Now the last thing we're going to specify on the side of this truck is going to be the catwalks here. State that they're not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, they're tight and secure, and there's no obstructions. Make sure you say that because an obstruction is a safety hazard. Something that some trucks will have and some trucks won't have, depending on what year they were made, is this DEF tank. It might be here for some trucks, like this Freightliner. It might be put on the frame somewhere in the back for other trucks. You just want to make sure you mention that that's not cracked, broken, not missing any parts, it's tight and secure, and since there's fluid in it, it's not leaking, and the cap is present. Same thing with the fuel tanks. I forgot to mention, you want to tell them it's not leaking as well, because again, there is fluid in that. So that is the side of the truck. Alright guys, we're moving on to the back of the truck. We're going to do the same thing that we did with the front of the truck, which is moving from the top down with all of our parts. So if you can tell me what's wrong with this picture, you'll get an extra bonus point in this video, but I'm going to give you the answer right now. So up here, you're supposed to have these 90-degree reflector tapes right there and over here. As you can tell, we're missing parts of each of ours, so this one would fail pre-trip inspection. So moving down, you'll have your window. This truck doesn't have one, but some sleepers do, and most day cabs have windows here. So you're gonna say not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. And also this window's seal is present. Coming over here, we have our handle, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. We have our exhaust, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Also, there's no exhaust leaks. You can tell if there's an exhaust leak by seeing signs of soot coming out from the pipes. Next, we have our service lights here, not cracked or broken, not missing parts, tight and secure. We have this is called a dummy coupler here, not cracked or broken, not missing parts, tight and secure. Then we have our electrical line and our air hoses, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Air hoses, they're not leaking at all. And the electrical line is not frayed at all. We're going to be coming over here. Those on the back of the cab are cab shock absorbers. Those aren't cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. They're not leaking. Same thing with these over here. It's hard to see at that angle. Right there and over there. Those are the cab airbags, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. And those are not leaking as well, because these both, the shock absorbers have fluid and the airbags have air, so they could potentially leak. We're also going to point out there's cross members. That right there is a cross member. There's one here. Not cracked or broken, not missing parts, tight and secure. We're going to look at our drive shaft in here, right down there. And you can also take a look right over here and point out the U-joints on the drive shaft. Not cracked or broken, not missing parts, tight and secure. And then one of the last things we're going to be mentioning, basically on the back of the cab here, this area, there's actually a couple things. The catwalk here, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. And just like the side steps, no obstructions. You gotta make sure there's no obstructions there. And then back here we have your splash guards, or some people call them quarter fenders as well. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, and then they're also nice, tight, and secure. Also, while we're back here doing the back of the truck, you have your torsion bars. There's one here, and there's one on this rear axle. It's going to be hard to see. Make sure you mention those, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, and they're tight and secure as well. Alright guys, so we just finished up with the back of the cab, so now we're going to be moving on to basically the rest of the back of the truck here. Some people like to start with the trailer, but we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to finish up the rest of the truck, the tractor, and then we're going to start with the trailer. So we're going to split this one up into a couple sections. We got the chassis, we got the brakes down there, we got wheels and tires, and then we're also going to move on to the coupling system, and then we'll move to the rear of the truck. Now it kind of seems a little overwhelming, but there's really, once you get into a system, it's not too hard to remember everything, and some of the stuff repeats pretty much on every single spot, like the tires here to there. There are minor differences, but it's not too hard to remember. So this is going to be your control arm mount, and that's going to be your control arm. They're different than the leaf springs in the front, so make sure you remember that. But not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, they're tight and secure. Also, take a look at these U-bolts down here, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Then we're going to look at our shock absorber and this airbag. Neither of them are leaking, and they're not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. So that's pretty much everything on the chassis side over here. Now we're going to move to the brakes. So you have your air hoses, you have your brake chamber, the push rod and slack adjuster, and then inside here you have your brake shoes and your brake drum. So none of that's cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure, no leaks. There's air in that system. You're going to want to mention that there's no less than 1/4 inch of thickness on those brake shoes in there. And you also want to mention that there's no excessive grease anywhere. So that would be the brakes. So pretty much the same as the front for the brakes. For the tires in the back, we're going to have again, 4 things, but they are going to vary a little bit. So in the front, we had no less than 4/32 inches of tread. However, in the back, it's going to be different. It's going to be no less than 2/32 inches of tread. All right. And then the only other difference is for the front, we said that cannot be recapped. The rears can be recapped. They are allowed to be. So those are the 2 differences. However, the other ones, they still have to be inflated to 105 PSI, and you're still looking for any abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. So moving down, we have the wheels. No differences from the front. Basically, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts. Everything's tight and secure. All the lug nuts are there. The valve stem cap is here, and I lied, there is one difference. So on this one, it's going to be an axle seal behind this, and on the front you have a hub seal. So make sure you are aware of that difference. But as well here, you want to make sure you specify that the axle seal is not leaking, because there's fluid in that. So basically, once you're done with this, you move on to the same section right here. Stuff repeats. Control arm mount, control arm, U-bolts, and so forth. So just take a look at that whole section we did here if you need a refresher for that one. All right, so before we move on to the coupling system here, did forget one thing. Your air tank down there, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight, secure, not leaking any air. So you're gonna have multiple air tanks. Make sure you're pointing those out. So moving back to the coupling system, I'm gonna start under here, looking at your apron. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Basically, you're just looking for this flat side that connects to the 5th wheel to not have any cracks. Then you have your kingpin, not cracked or broken, not missing parts, tight and secure. Just looking for any cracks with that as well. Now moving up to your 5th wheel itself, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure, and is greased properly. Then we're going to move to the side of the 5th wheel here, and we're going to be looking at the 5th wheel release handle and this pivot pin and the cotter pin, both present, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. So now moving from the 5th wheel itself, we're going to be coming down a little bit. So you're going to specify that the 5th wheel is attached to the base, which is right here. Basically the bottom side of the 5th wheel, this like triangular section. So that base is attached to this platform here, and this platform is attached to the frame itself. So make sure you know those different parts. 5th wheel is attached to the base, attached to the platform, attached to the frame. So none of that's cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. And the last thing you're really looking at with the 5th wheel is going to be in here. Can't see it currently. When the trailer is attached though, you can see the locking pin and locking jaw are not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure, and they're functioning correctly. So we got the coupling system. Now we're going to move to the very rear of the tractor. Also, while we're back here doing the back of the truck, you have your torsion bars. There's one here, and there's one on this rear axle. It's going to be hard to see. Make sure you mention those, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, and they're tight and secure as well. All right, so for the very rear of the tractor, it's going to be just a couple things. First thing we're going to be looking at is the mud flap here. Well, both sides, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. We're also going to be annotating that it has 100% reflective tape across the entire backside. So you want to make sure you mention that. While you're back here, you're going to take a look at your airbags again. Not cracked or broken, not missing parts, tight and secure, and not leaking. Then you have your brake lights. You're going to mention that those have 4 functions. So that's going to be brake, turn signal, emergency, and marker. So the 4 functions for that. You know, show your reverse light, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure, and then your license plate light here that is also functional. So we can get a closer look at the kingpin here. This is just for reference. You don't have to say it again, but that's what your kingpin should look like. It's not cracked or broken, properly greased. And then you should be able to look up when the trailer is connected into your 5th wheel to see the locking jaw closed. But right now, like I said, since this trailer is not actually hooked up to the truck, we're not going to be able to see that. So that is the back side of the truck, just a couple things. All right, so since we're done with the entirety of the tractor, we're going to start talking about the trailer here. So we already talked about the air hoses and the electrical line, so we're not going to do that again. So with the front of the trailer, we're going to start at the top and move our way down to the bottom. There's some marker lights up there. It's hard to see from this angle, but on each corner there should be marker lights. Just make sure you mention that those aren't cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure, and that they're functioning correctly. Moving down, we're going to be inspecting our rivets here, making sure that they're all present. We're just going to be looking at the front side of the trailer, making sure there's no holes, it's not cracked or broken at all. For the purposes of this pre-trip, we're just going to ignore that this trailer has a reefer unit on it. For your pre-trip inspection test, you most likely won't have a reefer trailer. So the other thing we're going to look at is these airline couplings. Make sure that those aren't cracked or broken, not missing any parts, they're tight and secure. Your airlines and your electrical wire is going to be connected at the time of the test, so you're going to be checking those all pretty much at once regardless. Next thing we're going to be looking for is our registration box, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure, and also our inspection sticker here, and that's up to date. You're going to make sure you mention that's up to date. So now that we got the front of the trailer done, we're going to move to the side and underneath. So we're also going to be moving from the front to back. So if we are jumping from, the side to underneath, that's why. So basically, starting at the front, we're going to be looking for any cracks or breaks or damages, any holes. We're also going to be looking at all the rivets, making sure they're all in place. Next thing we're going to look at on the side is this reflector tape. So it should be 50% along the whole side of the trailer. So that's different than the back of the tractor, because the back of the tractor was 100%. This will be 50% or every 18 inches. So now moving underneath of the trailer, since we already inspected the kingpin and the apron, we're going to leave that alone for now. However, we will look at these cross members here. We're going to make sure that they're not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. We're going to come over here to the landing gear. So we're going to look at our landing gear itself, the landing gear handle, the K-frame, that's what that's called. So none of that's cracked or broken, not missing any parts. That's all tight and secure. So we're going to continue to move down and inspect the basically everything we've already been looking at, the rivets and the reflector tape the entire time. This truck is a reefer, so this one has a fuel tank on it. Like I said, for your test, you're most likely not going to have a reefer unit on it, so you don't have to worry about that. So we're going to keep moving down, and I'll see you at the back. All right, so moving to the back of the trailer, you have your marker light. Basically going to be the same as the marker light does on the front of the tractor, but it's going to have three functions. It's going to be marker, turn signal, and emergency. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. So moving back further, we're going to get back here to this section. This is going to have a couple things. So we're going to basically move from front to back. So we're going to be looking at our air hoses here. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. They're not leaking air. Next, you're going to be looking at your tandems. So you have your tandem lever here, and then you have your tandem pins up. There's one right there, and then the other one is right here. Not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. Next, we're going to be moving over here to look at our airbag, the airbags, the air tank, the air lines with those. We're going to specify that those aren't cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure, and they're not leaking air. Next, we're going to be talking about the brakes. So we have our brake chambers in here. You have your push rod and slack adjusters, and then on the inside, you've already seen them pretty much everywhere else. You have your brake shoes and your brake drums. So with those, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure, not leaking any air. Again, with the brake shoes, you want more than 1/4 inch of thickness. You have to specify that, and no excessive grease anywhere. So now we're going to move on to the trailer, tires, and wheel. So that's pretty much going to be the same as the drive tires with the truck. There's just a couple small differences. So for the tires, they're pretty much going to be exactly the same as the truck. Well, the drive tires on the truck. So you're going to have more than 2 32 inches of tread. You're going to be at 105 psi. These can be recapped. They're allowed to be recapped. And then you're going to also be looking for any abrasions, bubbles, or cuts all around the tire, just like we've been doing. Coming down to the wheel, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. All the lug nuts are present. The valve stem cap is present. There's one there, there's one there. And then the only difference with the trailer wheels as compared to the tractor wheels is this is also going to be a hub seal. You can see it on there a little bit. That's a hub seal. So you're going to specify that none of this stuff is cracked, broken, or damaged, not missing any parts, it's tight and secure, and this hub seal has fluid so it's not leaking. Alright, so we're here at the very back of the truck now, sorry, the trailer. So we're going to start with the mud flaps, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. We're also going to say that those are at least 6 to 8 inches off the ground, 6 to 8. Then we're going to go to the top of the trailer here. Marker lights are present, not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, they're tight and secure. We're going to talk about our door hinges. We're going to talk about the door handles and make sure they work. Some of the instructors might want you to actually open the door. When you do, you're going to point out that the door seals are present. Moving along, we're looking at the lights here. So it's basically going to be the same as the back of the tractor. There are going to be 4 functions. You're going to have your marker lights, your turn signals, emergency, and your brake lights back here. All right, and then moving lower, we have our license plate, obviously, current and up to date. It's present, and then also this DOT bumper. That's going to be not cracked or broken, not missing any parts, tight and secure. It's also going to have this reflector tape 100% across the back. So that's pretty much everything for the back of the trailer. Besides this little guy, I forgot to mention the ABS light. You just want to make sure that you mention that that's there. It's not cracked or broken, missing any parts. And that's tight and secure. Now, at the end of this whole thing, because this pretty much sums up the outside portion of your pre-trip, you're going to ask your instructor if he would like you, or she, if he or she would like you to continue to go back up this side. Most oftentimes, they're not going to have you do it if they think that you know your stuff and if you're confident about it. But just in case, you want to make sure you ask. In my case, when I took my CDL test, the instructor was just pretty much telling me before I even finished back here to just go get in the cab because we're going to start the next section. So without further ado, we have finished the outside of the pre-trip. The next section is going to be the in-cab portion of the pre-trip. All right, guys, as you can see, we're in the cab now for our in-cab portion of our pre-trip. So we're going to start off with the safety items. So number one, we're going to have the seat belt. As soon as you get in with your inspector, put the seat belt on. Make sure it locks in place so that shows that it's working correctly. Next, you're going to show the fire extinguisher. Basically, it's mounted in place. The dial is in the green, showing that it's charged, and the pin is in place. Next, you're going to show your safety triangles, which you need 3 of those. I don't actually have them in here with me. They're underneath the bed in this truck, so I'm not going to show you that, but you just have to have them mounted in here. So yeah, a lot of the day cab trucks, they'll have them mounted behind the seat. Other trucks like this, they'll probably be under the bed. And then the last thing for safety devices is you'll need to have 6 emergency fuses. I keep my fuses up here, so you'll want to go over those 4 things. So next, you're going to want to go over some of the what I called movables. So basically, you'll have your steering wheel. Shouldn't move more than 10 degrees in play when the truck's off. Next, you're going to have to test your city horn and your highway horn, and you're going to actually pull those to show that they work. Next, you're going to show your paperwork, which is your registration and insurance. I keep mine over there in the glove box. Next, you're going to show the windshield. Basically, with that, you're going to talk about the windshield seal being there and the windshield wipers working. You're probably going to have to show that they do work, and you're going to also show that the windshield fluid sprays, so you'll probably have to test that as well. Only reason I say probably is because I know some people can get away with just talking about the stuff, but then there's some instructors like the one I had who actually made me make sure the stuff worked, like the horn, the windshield washer, all that kind of stuff. Lastly is the mirrors. When you're in here, you want to say to your instructor that your mirrors are adjusted properly to where you can see out of them. So we did the safety stuff, we did what I call the movables, and now we're going to move to our gauges. So for this truck, let me put the key in real quick. I would start going from basically left to right. So these are pretty easy because you can actually read them as well. So here you have your water gauge. That should actually be in the range of 170 to 210 degrees within operating temperature. Next, we'll go up to our oil gauge. That should be between 20 to 45 pounds of oil pressure in operating ranges. Then we'll go to our RPM gauge. You just have to specify that, your miles per hour gauge or your speedometer. And then up here, I don't know what those numbers are. That's where my voltmeter is, so that'll show the volts. On our right side, we have our fuel level. You'll want to specify that you have enough fuel for the trip. And then over here, you have your air gauges. And we will talk about more of that with the brake test. So now that we got through our gauges, we're going to go through our lights. This is the part of the test where your instructor is going to ask you for help. He's probably gonna, or he or she's gonna stand in front of the truck and behind the truck and instruct you on certain things to turn on the lights for. So let me get my helper. All right, guys, so in this section, we're going to need somebody to flick the lights for us while we test all the lights. So Oswald will be my helper. He's gonna flick the lights for me. Good job, buddy. So now that my helper is helping me do the lights, basically what they're gonna go through is they're gonna have you check your headlights. So you're gonna turn your headlights on. They'll have you check your high beams. In this Cascadia, you just flip that forwards. He's gonna have you check the left turn signal, the right turn signal, as well as your hazard lights. And then also he's gonna walk around to the back of the trailer to check those left and right turn signals, the hazard lights, and then also the brake, which is pretty self-explanatory. So those are all the lights that he or she's gonna check, and then they're probably going to meet back inside to do some of the switches, or maybe they might do them all at one time, depends on your instructor, but you're gonna have to explain some of the switches to them. So these are your parking brakes and your tractor parking brakes. The other switches you have that you have to absolutely at least mention is the lowering suspension if your vehicle has it, the fifth wheel slide if your vehicle has it, and then also your interaxle diff lock. All you have to do is just really mention them. Otherwise, the only other switch that you would have to mention is your air conditioning and the fan switches. I just basically said this controls the speed, you have your hot and cold, and then this is your defrost. They will ask you how to turn the defroster on because that's a safety thing. And if they ask you how it works, basically it just pumps hot or cold air onto the windshield to clear it up. So that was all of the in-cab portion of the pre-trip. The last part of the pre-trip that we have is the brake test, so I'll see you there. So now that my helper is helping me do the lights, basically what they're going to go through is they're going to have you check your headlights. So you're going to turn your headlights on. They'll have you check your high beams. In this Cascadia, you just flip that forwards. He's going to have you check the left turn signal, the right turn signal, as well as your hazard lights. And then also he's going to walk around to the back of the trailer to check those left and right turn signals, the hazard lights, and then also the brake, which is pretty self-explanatory. So those are all the lights that he or she's gonna check, and then they're probably going to meet back inside to do some of the switches, or maybe they might do them all at one time, depends on your instructor, but you're gonna have to explain some of the switches to them. So these are your parking brakes and your tractor parking brakes. The other switches you have that you have to absolutely at least mention is the lowering suspension if your vehicle has it, the fifth wheel slide if your vehicle has it, and then also your interaxle diff lock. All you have to do is just really mention them. Otherwise, the only other switch that you would have to mention is your air conditioning and the fan switches. I just basically said this controls the speed, you have your hot and cold, and then this is your defrost. They will ask you how to turn the defroster on because that's a safety thing. And if they ask you how it works, basically it just pumps hot or cold air onto the windshield to clear it up. So that was all of the in-cab portion of the pre-trip. The last part of the pre-trip that we have is the brake test, so I'll see you there. Alright guys, welcome to the last part of your pre-trip inspection. This is going to be the air brake test. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to have the truck running, because if it's not up to 90 psi yet in your air tanks, you're going to have to get it up there for this test. So while it's building, you're just going to wait a minute. So now we're going to turn the truck off since we're up to 100. We're going to turn the key back on. This is a pretty crucial step. Make sure that key's on, because if it's not on, you're not going to be able to hear certain things in this test. So now, number one, you're going to put your foot on the brake and hold it, and you should not lose more than 3 psi over the course of a minute. That's what you're going to tell your instructor or the examiner. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to push these in. You're going to push your parking brakes in. Keep your foot on the brake, because if you don't, your truck might move. And then you're going to pull your gear selector into first gear. And then when you let off the brake, your truck's going to stay in place because it's in gear. So keep in mind, you don't have any parking brakes right now because those are pushed in. So now the next step, what you're going to do is you're going to listen for the warning device, a buzzer. So basically, you're going to start pumping your brakes until the air tanks go down till you hear the alarm. Right there, my brake alarm came on. I'm going to tell my examiner I know that my low air brake alarm is functioning because it just came on. Now what you're going to do is you're going to continue pumping the brakes until your parking brakes pop out. Might take a while, so get used to pumping them. So my parking brakes popped out. I can tell my examiner I know the parking brakes or the are working out. The emergency brakes are working because they popped out at 25 psi. So something to also note is that the alarm is going to go off at around 40 to 60 psi, and the pop out test should, well, the parking brake should pop out between 20 to 40 psi. So make sure you tell your examiner that. Now we're going to turn the truck back on. So our parking brakes are back out. We're going to move that back into neutral. We're going to turn the truck back on, and we're going to fill up our air tanks all the way back up to 100. And I'll see you there. Alright guys, so the next thing we're going to tell our instructor is while these tanks are filling, we're going to wait to hear the governor. So the governor is the thing that stops the air pressure from building once it gets to a certain point. So once we get to those arrows, right around 120 to 140, we should hear a loud whoosh of air come out of this thing. It sounds like this. Psst. Right there it was. So I don't know if you heard that air rushing out, but that's the air governor. Last thing you're going to tell your examiner is that your governor is working correctly, because once you got to the point of 120 to 140, you could hear it expel air. Now the last part of the brake test is going to, well, there's two last parts. The last part is going to be the tug test. So basically what you do for the tug test is, one at a time, you're going to push in your parking brake and tug against it to make sure that the brakes are working. So we're going to push in the tractor parking brake, because that's going to release, this is going to release the parking brake from the tractor, and it'll keep the trailer brakes engaged. So what we're going to do is put it in second, and we're going to just very gently tug against it. And what's going to happen is you're not going to move. So what you're going to say is, my trailer parking brake is functioning because when I tug against it, it didn't move. Now next, we're going to pull this back out to set the tractor parking brake, and we're going to push the trailer parking brake in, because that's going to release the brakes from the trailer but keep the tractor parking brakes engaged. So now that we've done that, we're going to put it back in second, and we're going to slowly tug, and we're not going to move anywhere. So you're going to tell your examiner we've passed the tug test. Both the parking brakes for the tractor and the trailer are functioning correctly. And the very last part of the brake test, where I'm not going to actually show you, but I'll explain it. It's very simple. Basically, push in your parking brakes and you start driving like 3 or 4 miles per hour, and then you just simply press on your brake pedal to come to a stop and show that your service brakes are functioning because you obviously stopped. So that was the conclusion of the brake test. Alright guys, thanks for joining in for this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you found anything wrong with it or stuff that you liked, please drop that in the comments below. Don't forget to give me a like and a subscribe. I will be adding more stuff like this to the Trucking 101 playlist, so definitely follow me for more. And so basically, I hope to see you there. Hope you guys take care, and I'll see you later.